Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this monthly in-depth ag forecast for Ag South and Ag Carolina. All right, I got a lot I'm going to cover in this video. Talking first about some recent drought and severe weather. We're going to walk through the next couple of weeks. We're going to stretch this out to all of April. I'm going to talk about severe weather risk going through the spring time frame. At the end of this, I have some new long-range weather forecast information that you really need to see, plus an international outlook. So there's kind of a lot on our plate in this particular video, and I'm going to talk about the hurricane season at the very end of this. So with all of that, I want to get you started with this map. It's the last 2 weeks of precipitation expressed as a percent of normal, and we have seen some incredibly dry conditions that have shown up here, in the southern plains. Now, this is where all these big dust storms have been coming out of. But things have been a bit streaky in Ag South territory. Take note of parts of southern Georgia that have been drier. And then a large area here in North Carolina and Virginia that has missed out on some of this recent precipitation as well. And there's some concern in this area simply because of the, what happened last fall, right? We had Hurricane Helene that came through, and as it did so, made this turn like this. We saw just a tremendous amount of damage here, not only from flooding, but just due to incredibly strong winds. And I was talking to some folks in this area just about how much dry and dead timber there is because of Hurricane Helene ripping it down, which means that we need to be very careful about our upcoming spring and summer forecasts in this area to understand if drought's going to be expanding there simply because of the risk of fires late in the season due to all of the dead timber that is in this area. So I want to keep you aware of that. But right now, the main focus on drought expansion is not in the southeast. It's not in the Carolinas. It's not in Virginia. It is in the southern plains. Okay? Take a look at this. Some other evidence of where we are most concerned about the development of drought has been in the early season severe weather data. So since the start of this new year, every dot on this map is color-coded by tornadoes, severe winds, and hail. It just kind of gives us a glimpse into where we have seen our most active our most active severe weather. And that includes parts of the Carolinas, specifically North Carolina, with a lot of wind reports early in the season. What I'm trying to illustrate here, though, is this larger area that's back to the west where we've not been able to see moisture return in quite some time. And if that doesn't change, there's going to be some serious implications about how the entirety of the southern tier of the United States, and for that matter, the Midwest, responds as we transition out of spring and towards summer because of this. This is just a quick look at our topsoil moisture. And we can see here that while we've been drier, parts of South Carolina and North Carolina recently, okay, in other words, just in the last few days, few weeks, or a couple of weeks, the biggest area of dryness is here in the plains. And that's key because as we look at our latest drought monitor, yes, we have a significant portion of Ag South and Ag Carolina territory on the drought monitor. But I want to make a point here about where drought is deepest. It is deepest here, and it's been getting worse here as spring has gone on. Some numbers to think about: 44% of the lower 48 is in D1 to D4 drought. A year ago, that number was 21%. So significant difference this year in drought. But the question is, where is it going to be? Where is it going to grow with time? So let's take a look at a couple of maps to kind of give us an idea on this. The first one is here. This is where we've been so far in the month of March. And as we talked about, we have been drier in this area in the month of March. Better rains have come at times down here to parts of Georgia and South Carolina. I'm thinking about that system. Wow, this was back earlier in the month. That went right along the Red River Valley and then came into southern Georgia and dumped a bunch of rain. Take note of how dry it is in Florida, though. Just something to consider as we look at this drought that lines the Appalachian Mountains here. But also, the deepest drought is down across the west. Now, I've got major implications for this region. In fact, if you just go look at the jet stream right now, there is a trough of low pressure here that's going to sneak into Texas later this week and absolutely dump the rain on southern Texas. But does that get over to us into the south and east? That's a big question we're going to have here. So if you have a quick look at it, this is the latest 7-day outlook from the WPC. And there's that system delivering all that rainfall. Things stay very active, especially with respect to severe thunderstorms in the lower and mid-Mississippi River Valley. But as you note here, over the next 7 days, according to the WPC, we're not expecting much in the way of rainfall. Now, there will be rain. It's just not overly wet in parts of the southeast. If you take a look at the chance at staying under a half inch, there's a 20 to 30% chance that we don't get there, all right? But overall, in the next 10 days, there are systems coming through the lower Mississippi River Valley that will make it into the southeast. And that's why you see the probability of at least 50 to 70% that we're going to be seeing enough rain to get us back to those climatological averages for this point, finishing March into early April. Okay? But just note, where are we drier? Here. Where are we wettest and stormiest? In this corridor stretching right in through there. And that tells you something about the speed of these systems as they're moving across the United States. Now, the big feature is not in the Atlantic as we go forward. Now, at the end of this video, when we talk about the hurricane season, it is. But what I'm watching out here in the Pacific, I think, is much more important. Take a look at this. There is a large split that's taking shape in the Pacific jet stream. Now you're going, why does this matter? This is what I'm talking about. Big wave break here, cutoff low to the south. There's your split. This is going to result in much more active flow across the United States as we get into this month of April. And why I'm showing you all of this is because this is increasing our chances of above average precipitation, and unfortunately with it, the risk of severe storms going in farther into the month of April. So keep that just tucked away in the back of your mind as we go forward. Now, over the next couple of days, let me restart this for you. There's not a whole lot going on. Little bit of showers coming in Tuesday night into the Appalachian Mountains. Maybe sneaking across parts of North Carolina. This is Tuesday night. But other than that, we're not talking about too much rainfall getting into the early part of this week. What we're going to be watching for is later in the week as this system comes out of Texas that starts to move toward our area. So again, scattered rainfall chances Tuesday. You saw that, but not a whole lot else going on here. But let me show you what's going to happen after this. I love this comparison between the GFS model, which is a US-based model, and the ECMWF, which is a European-based model. The European model currently has higher skill. So if you said, Eric, which one should I focus on? Focus on the right. But I want you to see the left as well. So here is the chance for the scattered showers. You can see it in both models on Tuesday. We then play this out into Wednesday and Thursday. Now watch this system blowing up in the plains and into the mid-Mississippi Valley Thursday into Friday. And it's being fed on a big area of high pressure right here that's opening up the Gulf into the lower Mississippi River Valley, where we do have the severe weather threat going forward in time. But then this presses toward us when it's not most of this week, it's this weekend, Sunday into Monday. This is when we're going to watch it. So there's Sunday. See the moisture getting into our area. And then you're going to see the second press on Monday coming through the Mid-South, through the lower Mississippi River Valley, getting over to us. There it is, with our chance of severe and strong storms on Monday night. Now, we're not done. The atmosphere reloads. And take a look at what the GFS does compared to the European. The European over here on the right is much wetter as we get out there to next Tuesday night, and there's nothing in the GFS. But remember, this model has the lower skill score. This one's performing better. So by next Tuesday, we have another system coming through, and then another that shows up by Thursday, April 3rd. So you see, as we get into April, that's why I showed you this, that big split in the jet stream is going to help initiate multiple pieces of the jet stream running across the United States. Now, with this is going to come some severe weather threat. So I want to show you a new tool that I found by the National Severe Storms Lab. It's going to walk us all the way through April 7th, but it's like day by day. You can see where the severe weather risk is going to be. That's Thursday this week, getting into Friday the 28th, Saturday the 29th, Sunday the 30th. Watch the lower Mississippi Valley, but you know that it gets toward us. There it is, Sunday night into Monday. So that's our risk increasing by the 31st. On Tuesday, the reload takes place in the lower Mississippi Valley, stretches over toward us on Wednesday, and then you're going to see again Thursday, the reload. Friday presses east. Saturday the 4th. Just watch this try to move toward us as we get out there into that first couple of weeks of the month of April. I still think, again, you're just looking at the probability of seeing severe weather. I think that this is going to be a very active corridor, mainly in here, but this will get over to the Carolinas as we walk through this month of April and into May as well. Some of the analog years that are jumping out here would be like 2011. Now that's a drastic analog year, but I bring that up because I showed you the drought monitor earlier, right? Well, you know you can come over to this site, click on Maps, go to Map Archive, and then you can slide back over time. So if I went back and showed you 2011, it takes a moment to scroll. Here it is. Where were we in March of 2011? Well, we had our greatest drought here and here. Right? That's where we were, right? And then we know April and May opened up to a lot of severe weather in this area. So take a look. That's March of 2011. This is the current drought monitor. See, we do have this. We have this drought here, And here, that's why 2011 is showing up as a possible analog, going forward into this forecast. Now, as we look at the total precipitation over the next 10 days from the European model, I would like to just zoom in here after you've seen the US view on the southeast. And take note that it's those subsequent systems that are attempting to come through and revive the moisture. And that's why I think when you look at the ensembles and those probabilities start to increase at getting more than an inch, it's going to take these subsequent systems to get that job done. So that is the 10-day outlook from today's operational European model, showing better chances of showers and, of course, storms going forward into this forecast. Okay, a lot of that's coming, as you know, not this week, but next week, right? It starts this weekend, goes into next week. And even the ensemble continues to show that over the next, day 8 through 14, that's the first full week of April, above average chances for above average precip. It's drier here, okay? Keep that in mind as we go forward. All right, what about the rest of April? I don't like the forecast. This doesn't make sense to me. This is the new European outlook all the way through May 1. And while I do find that this area does have the risk on the drier side, I would find this whole corridor in through here has a much higher chance of being wetter than average. So you look at that and go, wow, I see dryness in here. I think this is just some persistence bias in the model. There is better chances of you seeing a lot of storm activity going forward in this forecast than not. Okay, so maybe I agree a bit more with the monthly outlook from the CPC. They're keeping their greatest risk of dryness here and down into Florida. I would not let this creep up into parts of Georgia and the Carolinas. I think this whole region stays much more active with our strongest severe storm risk going forward. Okay, now why this is so important is because of this map. This map shows you the seasonal drought outlook through June 30th. And take note where they have labeled drought development likely. It's all in this area. We do not see this here. In fact, I would move more of the Carolinas over to the drought remains but improves, and possibly drought removal is likely here. And I'm going to make a case for why I think that is in just a few moments. But first, if you don't mind, I'm going to give you the near-term temperature forecast so I can stretch that out too. Because most of March has been relatively mild. We've had limited shots of cold air. When it comes through, it's a day, right? As we look out here at our frost forecast going forward, parts of, go over toward the Blue Ridge Mountains, northern parts of North Carolina still are expecting a frost over the next 7 days. But take a look at these temperatures. Here's today's highs. This is as I'm recording this on Tuesday the 25th. There's Wednesday, a little cooler weather sneaking in here. Okay, but watch. Wednesday, there it is again. But later on this week, Thursday into Friday, into Saturday, Sunday, Monday, major warm-up that's taking place. Now, is there risk of some cooler air penetrating through the Midwest, getting over the mountains into our region in the month of April? There is. But I want to show you a neat way to look at this. This is my temperature matrix, okay? It's on my website, AgWeather.com. I just came over here and I slid down and clicked on 15-day average temperature anomalies, and this is what you get. European models across the top. I've got the GFS model in the middle and the AI model on the bottom. So it's in 5-day chunks. Next 5 days, day 5 through 10, day 10 through 15. You can look at this any day you want. Now, what do you notice? We notice that, we have these chances of cooler weather this week. But then you see day 5 through 10, day 10 through 15, and all of the models brings in warm conditions. And as you look out there and see these longer range forecasts, we notice that our CPC outlook for the month of April is suggesting above average temperatures. Now, there will be some cool intrusions, but they'll be brief into this area. So let's just understand that most of the month of April will likely feature above average or more warm days than cool. That's the way you get this, more warm days than cool. You can also see it in the forecast by the European. This is through the first 7 days of April. This is getting into week 2, still above average, a little cooler here. And this is going out into week 3. Now, some of you are going, whoa, what is this? I'm going to tell you something about the European model. For several runs in a row, it's been trying to predict cooler weather to come into this area in mid-April. Now remember, mid-April cool is not the same as mid-March cool, right? I mean, we're another month of gaining daylight hours, gaining our seasonalities with respect to temperatures. But I've watched this model over-predict cool weather here for a while. That being said, I'm not going to rule it out. We'll keep on top of this. We'll watch it carefully. You can keep an eye on these day-to-day forecasts. And if you need a spot to go do that, again, just go here, agweather.com. I built this site for you. And you can come in here and see all of these maps. There's quick ways to kind of navigate. You can see even historical weather. I've got all sorts of great stuff. Or you can just say, gosh, I live in Raleigh. I just need to see what's going on in Raleigh, right? So you can start typing this in and it'll bring it up, Raleigh, North Carolina. Click submit and you've got your temperature forecast. You can even see it as a time series. You're like, I need just to see this. Am I staying out of that frost zone? It's all right there. Please take advantage of this, okay? So from here, let's now get on to the bigger news. As we look at this upcoming forecast, I've got on my website a series of graphics that talk about La Nina, and I want to show you this one. When you go to that link, it's going to take you to one of my favorite sites, Tropical Tidbits. This is a great site to visit during the hurricane season. But what I want you to see is this, though. Since January, our La Nina's faded fast, and I want you to know something about that. So I put together a graphic to help understand it. The forecast is for INSO-neutral conditions all the way through fall. Now, there is a better chance of developing next winter another La Nina than to see El Nino form. But that's next winter. We're not there yet. What I want to show you is that ahead of the hurricane season, we tended to have above average precipitation and not see extreme heat. You're saying, okay, if a La Nina fades to neutral, what happens? What happens in the following May to August? You see, I'm showing you this because this is going to be some of the analog support for the upcoming weather forecasts. And what do they look like? Nearly all of them look like this. This is the April, May, June probability of exceeding average temperatures, okay, your normals. We're expected to be warmer than average, but the heat's back here. What about getting into May, June, July? Still expected to be warmer than average, but the heat is here. What about June, July, August? Still warmer than average, but the greatest heat risk is going to be in the plains and in the Great Basin. And even July, August, September. So my point here is not to say that you're going to have a cool summer. No. But where is the forecast? All of them. They're all doing this. Where are they putting the greatest risk of heat? In this corridor. Now, what does that do? Well, take a look at the precipitation for April, May, June. As I told you, I'd expand this. I'd put this whole corridor in the risk of being above average on precip, not just the Eastern Corn Belt. But April, May, June, drier here. May, June, July, look, now you've got it. June, July, August? Why? Well, the likelihood of putting a surface high pressure cell here while a big ridge runs over the top. So your upper level ridge runs here, okay? Your surface ridge, high pressure, sits there. We tend to get flow that comes around it like this. And if the Bermuda High is a little bit displaced east, the other part of the flow comes around like that. It all kind of meets here. And the net effect is the summer precipitation pattern is expected to be stormy. We're expecting stormy conditions, not drought development. Now, could this all break down and fail? Yes. How would it fail? The Bermuda High is not here. Instead, it's there. That's the key thing. And I can't predict that just yet at the end of March. But every model that I have seen, every one of them, and I'll show you two here today, has predicted this to be the case for summer. The greatest risk is in the Corn Belt. We've got to know about this. Let's go from there over to July, August, September. Now we're encroaching in on the beginning of the hurricane season. Now, what I want to talk to you about this hurricane season is to show you this. This is the latest July, August, September outlook from the European model. Now, as I said, I don't have a model that's got you dry for summer. I don't. They're not there. So if there is going to be the risk of the big Bermuda High sliding over and just killing us on precipitation chances, it is not yet being seen or realized in these longer range forecasts. Now, this is what I want you to get. Take a look at the main development region, MDR, main development region. The current forecast for the start of the hurricane season through its peak is not overly active. It's saying, hey, this might be a year where we home grow some hurricanes here or here. Now, we know these can get us from both directions, but it looks right now that according to the forecast, watching big African easterly waves may not be as well forecast as it was a year ago. You want to I'll show you what a year ago looked like? This was the forecast a year ago. We had this whole corridor open for business, and we got it, didn't we? We got it out of the Caribbean, systems out of the Gulf, main development region. They came across. So I want you to see the year-on-year difference. So this was a year ago in March, predicting July, August, September. This is this year. Watch for homegrown systems. But the big story here, I do not have a forecast model that is dry for you in summer, meaning that as we go through spring into summer, if anything changes, we've got to talk about it fast to make sure we understand what our risk looks like. But again, this just brings me back to this map, not that map, this map. I think we're going to be able to remove some of this going forward. Okay? One last thing to talk about here. I want to give you some perspective on some international weather. So let's go over to this and have a quick look at the new IRI multi-model probability forecast for summer. Again, you do not see drought risk in the southeast. It's here in the western Corn Belt or the northwest. But I want you to see there, the Black Sea. There is some risk of going dry in the Black Sea. We see much of Indonesia and Australia wet. We see a lot of China and India wet. But there's these two big growing areas, the Black Sea region and the western Corn Belt, that are showing up with drier signals. That I cannot ignore. That's why I want to make sure I talk about it. So, with all of that being said, I'm going to give you one last thing to think about here, and it's going to be South America. There was some drought pressure on this side of the safrinha crop. About 15% of the acres were hit with drought. You're saying, why aren't you covering more about South America today? Well, I don't see major risk on the safrinha crop right now. I just don't. So until I have evidence to overturn that, which early April would be the time frame for that to occur, early to mid-April, I'll make sure that you're staying on top of it with me, okay? All right, until the end of next month, you have a good one. Be safe. Understand that we do expect to see more active severe weather coming through, but now you know my longer range thoughts, and I'm going to wrap it up here. Have a good one. Thank you.